What's good, everybody? Matthew Brewfield back again with another video. Such a marvelous day. I mean, we're here to talk about NBA today, so I mean, come on, it's been a good season lately. We can't really neglect it, you know, we can't really deny the obvious as well, but I just want to talk about a specific topic. I had to make this video because, I mean, most people in my life understand that, like, I'm a big LeBron James fan. I mean, I'm from the same area. I always claim that to this day I die. I mean, he's just been like a legend in the game for so long. I personally believe he's the GOAT to me. That's just my opinion. I know other people got their opinion, but whatever. Anyways, it just hurts me to see that, like, he's playing this hard at year 19. Like, at year 19, where you would have thought, like, he might have been out the league beforehand, but no. He's still dropping like 30, 40 points or whatever. But look, I mean, he's playing at MVP caliber type level, but I mean, let's just be realistic. The Lakers suck. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I want to kind of give my analysis on the Lakers and just seeing the things that, the inconsistencies that they have and where they're breaking down at. And also talk about these trade talks that they have Russell Westbrook in the news. So I mean, let's just get right into it. Recently, I believe coming off the New Year's, or before the New Year's, excuse me, little week, they were on like a 4-game winning streak. And you know, I was thinking they might get to 6, because if you watch Inside the NBA on TNT, like Charles Barkley said, they won't ever have a 6-game winning streak at all this season. And so I was thinking, like, maybe this is the time they get their stuff together. You know, they get right back into the Lakers of the past. With LeBron, you know, every team he touched is a championship caliber team. I was thinking that, but nope. You know, John Morant, who's playing lights out this season, destroyed that, killed that. So, I mean, but let's just see why they're struggling. I mean, why would a team that has probably the greatest player of all time, along with Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, who's like a triple-double machine, you know, one MVP off of like 4 straight seasons of averaging a triple-double. Why can they not seem to get it right? So, you know, let's just get right into it. I mean, if you would have watched that game, I believe it was January 2nd that they played the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's just put this stat out here because this is astonishing. This is like absurd. LeBron had 13 of 18 shooting that night. He shot for 72%. Like, that's amazing for his career. Like, I mean, not saying LeBron isn't a good shooter, because I think he can do that well, but if you just look at his whole career, he's not known as a shooter, but he's shot 72% from the field. Like, that's just amazing. The rest of the team combined, not just like the bench, not just like 2 players that are like barely making it as the 14, 15 man on the Lakers roster. The rest of the team combined, so this includes Russell Westbrook, Melo, all these nice stars, you know what I'm saying, Reeves, Wayne Ellington, people that can shoot well. They combined for 31% shooting. I don't even need to say more on that. Like, they shot 18 for 50 out of 57 shots. They made 18 of those. So like how? Like, how? Like, how? That's just, come on, like, how? But nonetheless, Anthony Davis is out, of course. We'll mention that later on, but I mean, there's a lot of problems that are breaking down the Lakers. And from my analysis on that game specifically, Memphis did a lot of damage exploiting the double teams. And they were coming off of like double screens. So like, usually 9 times out of 10, you know, person with the ball, you know, somebody, you know what a double screen is. I don't really have to explain it, but it seemed that like the off man, basically on defense for the Lakers, basically the guy that's not checking the dude that has the ball, he wasn't really respecting the roll man. And usually on a pick and roll, like, players usually switch, or that player that's guarding the ball, that's on the ball, defender, he's fighting over the screen, either going under the, you know, the pick man, or going over. If you watch any of the Lakers basketball, they haven't had success doing that. They literally have people running across the court doing crazy things like that. But you know, they having a tough time fighting through the screen. So you know, usually it's supposed to be the guy that is, you know, not guarding the player that has the ball. Usually either picks up the person with the ball after they come on the other side of the screen, or he finds the roll man who's setting the pick and he follows them to the basket, because that's usually what happened. Didn't seem like the Lakers was doing that at all that game. I mean, just putting that out there. Also, they seemed a little bit confused on their rotations. They were really playing like a variation of the 3-2 zone defense, which usually you got your two guards along with probably a forward at the top of the perimeter, guarding like kind of out to the both wings in the middle of the court. And then you usually have two guys sitting in the paint, either guarding the corner, or they're usually there to stop anybody to collapse on somebody driving to the hole. Every time they would come off the screens, Memphis would come off screens, like it looked like the Lakers were just confused on rotations. Like, oh, am I gonna go guard this guy in the corner, or am I gonna stay on in my zone and respect that? And it just seemed like the Lakers just had trouble doing that a lot, and they were just, and that allows the team to get easier buckets. Usually they'll pass it out, dish out a one pass, and usually if you're playing good zone defense, you're trying to force that second pass, or you're just trying to deny that option outright. But it looked like the Lakers couldn't do that. Guys, you have three guys collapsing on one, and then you have two dudes open trying to rush back to get a contested shot, and it's just not going to work. You're not quick like that. Some freakish athletes may be, but not everybody. Also, I want to mention in this game, because I want to compare the Houston Rockets game they had on the 28th of December, kind of after Christmas, where they won that game. I think that was the last game they won. That was their fourth game before Memphis snapped that 4-game winning streak. They were playing a small ball lineup, and now I get that and I understand that with the fact that Anthony Davis, who was supposed to be like their star player on that team, being out due to injury, as he always is, unfortunate. But I don't think you have to go small ball. You still have Dwight Howard on the court. I mean, he may not be doing well defensively as he used to early on in his career, but that's still a big body and a big presence down low. But it just seems like they were going with the small ball lineup where LeBron's playing the 5 spot, Melo's playing the 4 to 3, and then you would have probably like Malik Monk playing at a guard, Russell Westbrook obviously playing point guard, and probably somebody else to substitute like Trevor Ariza at the small forward position. And I don't think that's really been successful for the Lakers at all. Basically, it seemed like too, when the players are playing with LeBron, they don't want to get too much involved. They feel like they're just relying on LeBron to do it all, or Russell Westbrook to do all the scoring. And they're just sitting out in the perimeter, not really making movement across the court, not cutting down the baseline, not setting screens, a lot of things like that. They're just relying on LeBron to get into the post, do his thing, or they're relying on Westbrook to get to the paint and do his thing as well, which I don't think that's been really successful for them. And obviously it gets into the point of energy. I mean, I can understand that like you're probably not playing as well as you expect to be, but like it's a difference of having effort and having initiative on the court, playing hard all the way. Like Westbrook usually plays hard. He's been messing up, but he usually plays 100% at all the time. I get that, you know, with minutes and things of that nature, like you're not going to be playing at a full pace at the game, but at least give effort. It just seemed like the players didn't have any initiative to get up and down the court, especially when they're down double digits in those games. You know, they were just allowing easy fast break points and playing a team like Memphis with Ja Morant, who's a very explosive and quick. Like, you don't want to do that, because once he gets going, it's just, you know, it's just going to roll on to the other quarters, and that energy is really important in a professional game. Like, you got to think about it. The fans are there going crazy. They want to see those fast break points. They want to see those big dunks and all those things like that. And I just believe that, you know, that is very detrimental to a team trying to make a comeback, which in the game of basketball, you know, down 25 points or down even 20 may seem like a lot, but depending on the amount of time and the possessions that you have in that game, the more possessions you get, the more opportunities to get points. So that lead can close. Simple. I mean, it's just that. I think, in my personal opinion, Frank Vogel needs to take initiative in changing that lineup. The lineup that I really love to see in the game for the Lakers, obviously they did that the Houston game and they won. Not saying Houston is a challenging team, but they're definitely playing hard every night with their young guys, and they're making an impact on this league. But They played the lineup in that game that I really like with Reeves, Ellington, Melo, LeBron, and Dwight. That lineup seems to be better for the offense to flow. I know Carmelo Anthony is on the back end of his career. It's no secret. He was out the league for 3 years, a couple years ago or something before he went to Portland, but let's not disrespect the legend of this game. He's probably considered one, in my opinion, to be one of the best post-up players one-on-one of all time. Like, his post game is automatic, but also he's very efficient shooting that wing three. Like, shooting that wing three shot, that's Melo's spot. If you watch all his highlights, if you even remember him watching in like his whole career, because I'm a big Knicks fan, so like I used to watch Melo all the time back in 2014 and stuff like that.
In the hands of Anthony. Anthony for three. Puts it in!
A lot of times when it's getting down to crunch time, Melo's hitting that wing three shot like this, like it's butter. And so like I think the Lakers have to utilize that more, because Melo can still play at a efficient level. Reeves is also another shooter, but he has that energy of being like a first-year guy to move around and do all the dirty work for you. I just feel like he's very reliable on getting the offense to flow and getting a lot of movement across the court and everything like that. He's eager, he's young, he has talent, he can shoot the three ball as well, and he can also go into the paint and make tough baskets for you. Wayne Ellington was a good addition for the Lakers, and he seems to be able to hit that consistent three shot as well. I'm gonna get into the lineup a little bit later too, because Malik Monk, I know a lot of people might be like, well, Malik Monk is playing lights out lately, and I agree so I think he's another good person to plug into that lineup. I feel like with Russell, I would like to see him either play his game, because I don't think he's been able to play his game playing with LeBron. He's still trying to figure out, like, you know, should I be that aggressive guy and try to make buckets no matter how many shot attempts I get up versus how many shots I make. I think he needs to play like that. I think he needs to get that LeBron-esque out of his mind. Not saying it's LeBron's fault that he's playing this way, but I think when you playing with a guy like LeBron who's been in the league for years before you've been there and has been successful almost every year, you tend to kind of feel a little bit guilty on doing some of the things that made you a superstar. And I think Russell Westbrook has to get back to that. And I think that's what LeBron wants essentially as well, to get rest and to get things like that. Excuse me. So I would like to see that, either him doing that with the first group and letting LeBron just stay back, because I feel like LeBron is very versatile, but or, you know, possibly, which I know that kind of goes against the grains of pride for Russell Westbrook being a NBA All-Star and legend, a possible Hall of Famer, which he will be later on. But if, you know, for the championship, there's a lot more important factors that play into this. So I feel like if you give him more staggered minutes, maybe playing a lot more with the second group, that would be very beneficial to the Lakers. But let's move on. And then also, no, I want to, before I move on with Westbrook, sometimes he just have off nights. I think people kind of just are focused on the negative with Westbrook with his turnovers. Like, I mean, if you want to be realistic, he's had a consistency of turnovers over the years that he's played in the league, but he still produces numbers. I feel like it's just more heightened now because the Lakers aren't winning, and also it's Russell Westbrook. People want to hate on him. You know, they want to call him Westbrick and everything like that. But I mean, if this consistency over his career and he's won MVP with the same amount of turnovers, like, let that be. As long as he's producing and playing, that would be fine. But I feel like if you try to limit that and put control on him as a player, you're going to get the result you're going to get and not win, essentially. But anyway, let's move on. Out of those two games, out of the Rockets and Memphis game earlier on this year and last year, they just had trouble respecting the right shooters in the corner on these teams, on defensively for the Lakers. And I feel like doing that isn't going to get you wins, because those guys out there playing with John Morant, those guys playing with Jalen Green, who are known as game like superstars and takeovers at the right moments, not respecting those others shooting those corner threes and everything will get you beat, because that's their job. They know they play with a type player in John Morant who's MVP type caliber. So my job is to stay in that corner when he drives and everybody claps on him. He's gonna dish it out and they're gonna knock it down. So I feel like the Lakers need to stop disrespecting those shooters out there on the wings and the corners for these other teams, and I think they'll do just fine. Now, before I move on into the recent games with the Kings, because they played the Kings on the 2nd of January, and then they just played them on the 12th. By the time this video comes out, like, they just had played them on the 12th. But with that being said, I feel that the Lakers are sitting at a good spot right now. They're 7th in the Western Conference. They're sitting just right at 500. The team above them, the Denver Nuggets, who they play next after this game, this recent game, excuse me, they're 20-19, so they could easily move up into the 6th spot and get a more comfortable spot leading into the All-Star break. With that being said, though, like, it's still tough being there as a team because all the teams below you are similar. At least the next 3 teams below the 7th seed, so like the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th seed, are sitting around the similar same spots of that record, and they could easily win a couple stretches of games to move themselves up before the All-Star break in. I don't think you want that to happen as the Lakers, because things would get tough, and mentally doing that on the back end of All-Star break, it's just going to be very tough for you to try to get some momentum before the playoffs, because they come up quickly just like that. But anyway, let's get down to the analysis of the Kings game. So they definitely made, in the first game against the Kings, even though they won, they definitely made some fundamental defensive mistakes. I believe, just like, once again, in the zone, playing at 3-2 so like, they would have a lot of situations where the Kings were setting double screens at the top of the perimeter, and everybody would just seem to focus on the player with the ball. They would just seem to focus on De'Aaron Fox, who had the ball most of the games, and Tyrese Halliburton, who was making phenomenal plays out there. They would just kind of get tunnel vision, and it would seem like a confusion because, like, players would end up looking back and trying to run to the paint to grab the pick man or the guy that's rolling off the second screen, and like, those are just fundamental things you can't happen at this point in the season. Like, you're professionals, and I get that, like, you know what you're doing, you've been playing a year this long, but those are mistakes that you shouldn't be making at this time of the season. Like, they don't stay aware of other players doing off-ball movements, basically meaning the players that don't have the ball, they're making movements. They don't stay aware of that, and that's what gets them beat. That's what gets the Lakers beats on the defensive end. So, like, I think they have to do a better job of staying aware of who's in their zone, what type of player that is, because if he's known as a shooter, you have to respect that shot. If he's not known as a shooter, then you could cheat a little bit on either the first pass that's going to be made, or the player with the ball to help, provide that pressure on them when they're driving to the paint. But I feel like that's just something that they need to do. That's just fundamental. That first game, though, they actually did something different than the Memphis game. They played with great energy and confidence. I mean, definitely they looked like everybody was finally getting into their specific role as a team. And at the end of the day, in that first game, like, LeBron was just immaculate. Like, LeBron was just great. He just played very, very well at this level. And once again, being in year 19, I don't think anybody could really remember any of the NBA greats, even Michael Jordan, at year 19 playing as well as LeBron's doing on a consistent basis at his age. I mean, you gotta kind of put in consideration that LeBron was literally injured. Like, out of the past 3 seasons, he missed a lot of games for the first time in his career due to injury. And I believe for him to be playing like this at year 19, taking the load of the Lakers offensively and also a little bit defensively, it's just amazing. And you can't stop a great player when they're on a roll. Malik Monk, though, I will give him his credit. He was making some impactful plays, excuse me. He was at the right moments, at the right times. He was taking over, and he was just letting that 3-ball go, and it was just going in the net. Like, unbelievable play out of Malik Monk. I feel like he's gaining his confidence back that he was gaining in Charlotte to be that type of player. Not really relying on the fact that I'm playing with LeBron, and if I don't get him his touches, if I don't get Westbrook his touches, I feel like they might get mad at me and I might not get minutes. I feel like he stopped worrying about all that crap, and now he's playing at an elite level now, to where they could use him down the stretch after the All-Star break to get themselves back up the ladder and probably gain a 4th or 5th seed. Who knows? Hopefully they're lucky to do that. As I mentioned earlier too, once again, Melo, late in the third quarter, or late in the second half as well, they were feeding him in the post a lot. And I believe that's where you need to put Melo at. Get him in the right spots. You know what I'm saying? Get him on the right block, left block. Let him take those 2 dribbles, face up, pull that jumper. It's automatic. I mean, I can't stress this enough. And I hate when people do this to Carmelo just because he's old. He has been playing phenomenal his whole entire career one-on-one, especially in the post. Any hardcore basketball fan knows that Melo is going to make that shot automatic. He used to get like 18 points a night in Portland doing that alone. So like, why stop it now? Why not trusting him in those key hard moments? You get LeBron his rest that he needs and let Melo take over the game. I mean, people just got to stop disrespecting him. Like, come on, like, people just got to stop. It's just ridiculous how much disrespect that they got for him now. But in the first game with the Kings, it paid off big time. So that's that. The only concerning thing that I got out of that first game with the Kings is that the Lakers still can't beat teams with a big lead. I mean, if you look at the Suns, if you look at the Warriors, when they're playing mediocre teams, or when they're playing just average teams, like, they're blowing them out most nights on a consistent basis. I mean, you have those games from here and there that are, you know, low scoring, but most of the time they're doing that. And if the Lakers want to compete with those teams, which they're going to have to in the playoffs to get to the championship, because that's the expectation for the Lakers, they're going to have to do that. So, like, I say give them a little time. Hopefully they can get it together by the end of the season, but I mean, that's still concerning. They have to beat these teams because it's more teams and more competitive now in the league than ever. And they haven't even faced the Eastern side yet. So, I mean, the East Conference, excuse me. So, like, they have to find a way to get that ball rolling so that where they can pull away from certain teams with these leads. Now, let's not get too ahead of ourselves because they played the Kings again on January 12th. And this game was a little bit different. Obviously, the Kings came out victorious in the game, so they split in the month of January 1-1. It was a little bit different this game, not too much different, but it was still some things that hurt them. Obviously, they started off decent defensively. Like, they started off well at the beginning of the game defensively. They were going back-to-back with buckets, and they were holding their own, but they obviously, then again, once again, like I said, this has been a theme for the whole season on defense for the Lakers. They broke down by lack of communication off the pick and rolls and the double screens. Like, it was literally one play, I swear, in that game. Avery Bradley, like, bless him, he's been in the league for a while. He's a decent player. He's a vet. He's a good vet to have in your team. But it was literally, I think it was a double screen at the top of the perimeter, but the spacing between those screens was absurd. And instead of him, I was thinking maybe the smart decision would to be calling a switch, at least for the second guy that was playing on the guy setting that double screen, the second screen, excuse me. He ran across both screens over the top and tried to fight through. And with them being that far away from the three-point line on the perimeter, you're not going to have that enough time. You're not going to be quick enough to close down on that gap. And so he was literally trailing that dude, and obviously the guy that set the first screen broke off, rolled, and got the easy layup. So, like, it's just simple things like that, that matters. They don't pick up the roll man, and that causes them to get easy buckets. I mean, I just think that's fundamental. Late in the third quarter, though, will also hurt them big time, especially with a player like De'Aaron Fox, who's quick up and down the court, and he's a tough person to guard in the paint. The Lakers was getting themselves beat by a lot of transition points. It just killed the lead that the Lakers had in the game, so the Kings can close it. And that's one of those things I was talking about again. It's so easy to cut down a lead in the NBA now. It just is. And at that point, with De'Aaron Fox being the quick player that he is, he was catching a lot of his defenders on their heels, either running with them and trying to turn around and turn face to De'Aaron Fox. And by the time they do that, De'Aaron Fox is already at their hip, taking 2 steps to get the tough lay with the fouls. And then also, too, it was just a lot of points in that game to where obviously they played that variation of 3-2 zone. Dwight Howard and such and LeBron James are collapsing together on the guy with the ball. And at this point, it was De'Aaron Fox in the lane, to where they might have contested his shot, but at that moment, you know you're taking a risk with that guy that you left, your man, excuse me, coming off and catching the second chance points off the rebounds and putback dunks. I mean, you can deal with that obviously in the game, but like adding that on top of the errors you're making defensively with the lack of communication, knowing who's getting who off of the pick and rolls, I mean, that's double damage to you. So like, if you're gonna get beat by these putback points, obviously, and not getting the boards that you need to get to win in the game, then just at least don't lack at the point of communications on defense and giving up these easy 3 balls. Because I mean, in the game of basketball, let's be honest, the 2 most important stats, really the most important stat, are the rebounds, because that's giving you possessions. And the more possessions you have, the more opportunities you have to score the ball. If you control those 2 things in the game, you're gonna win. So I mean, that's something that they had to look out for. Lastly though, I just think though in that game the Kings just played better overall. Harrison Barnes was on it, Marvin Bagley, he was on it. I know he's been having a little trouble this season with injuries and things like that, or trying to get back into the lineup. He wasn't getting much play, but he was on it last night. And De'Aaron Fox, when he got into the 4th quarter, he just took over. Tyrese Halliburton, obviously, being his 2nd or 3rd year in the league, he's showing promise. Not even promise, he is a good player, and he's just only going to get better from here. And with that, with the type of talent that the Lakers have and their others other than LeBron and Westbrook, they just got outbeat, they just got outplayed. They just didn't compete enough. Not saying that they didn't compete all the way, because that was a hard-fought game, but at that point, Harrison Barnes and De'Aaron Fox just took over and closed the game out. So, but with that being said, like, I think the Lakers definitely have an opportunity to gain some momentum before going into the All-Star break and getting a little bit more wins, just to spread out that margin of being, instead of being at 500, being over 500, because that's very important in an 82-game season. You play a lot of games, so like, you need to, you know, separate that win to loss difference, because you don't want to be at that line hovering, because when it gets to those last couple games, teams are going to turn it on, and that team that might be sitting at the 8th seed or the 9th seed, they're gonna play lights out, and they're gonna see what can happen. Like, maybe if we win these last 3 games down the stretch, we can get over the Lakers and not be in the play-in games and things of that nature. And obviously you don't want to be the team like the Lakers, which they did last year, was to get that last seed and have to play like a team like the Phoenix Suns, or right now the Golden State Warriors, who are on a roll and probably are the favorites to win the West. So I don't think the Lakers want to see that early on, especially when Anthony Davis has to come back, and now you got to make different adjustments, because Anthony Davis has to play, you know, differently, and also the others have to play differently, because now your shot percentage and the amount of shots that you get are gonna go down, because Anthony Davis is gonna have to get all those. I would like to see what the Lakers are gonna do adjustment-wise when Anthony Davis comes back, because I believe before, at the beginning of the season, he was shooting a lot of threes, and I don't think that's his role on his team. You already have Malik Monk, Ellington as well, and Melo that can make those better than you. I think Anthony Davis at the beginning of the season before he got hurt was shooting at 30% in the 3-point realm. And so I think he has to get inside. He's a bigger body, and his post game is just as good, if not better, than his perimeter game. And that also goes down to the minutes that's going to be cut down on Anthony Davis to play a lot, and that's also going to cut down on his energy level, because the one thing with Anthony Davis, it just seems like he plays a lot, and then he burns himself out and causes these easy injuries, and he's never on the court when you need him. But with that, I mean, I think the Lakers still gonna make the playoffs. That's my hope. I would love to see LeBron make the playoffs. I definitely don't want this to be like a bad season like the first year he got with the Lakers and not make the playoffs for some reason. And I mean, he's playing lights out. I'm a big LeBron fan once again, so I just want to see him be successful and win. So that ends this video. I would like to thank you for watching. If you would like, comment, and subscribe down below. Click the link in my website to check out my articles, and also give my Instagram page a follow. With that being said, God bless and love all.